Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to talk about American fiction. Brilliant, brilliant film. I believe the author's name is Jeffrey Wright, and he is my James Gordon, right? Brilliant actor, and a brilliant film, but it really brought something forward about Dungeon Masters. It brought forward a powerful lesson about Dungeon Masters. Here is what I learned from American fiction about Dungeon Masters. So, spoilers for American fiction here. So, American fiction has this character. His name is Thelonious Ellison. Thelonious Ellison. And Thelonious writes deep, profound books, and he is an African American author, but he doesn't want to identify as an African American author. He wants to identify as an author, right? Which he's able to do, and he's able to write a couple books, and they're marginally received. And then authors are not interested in the rest of his work, right? But then he finds another African American author who writes in the voice of her people, right? And her books are engaging and they sell, right? And so he's like, well, why don't I do that? Why don't I write in the voice of my people, right? But he makes it exaggerated, right? And he writes a book called My Pathology, Pathology, right? And he writes this thing as a cartoonish version of what an African American would write, right? And then he gives it to his agent, and he has an agent. And make no mistake, having an agent, if you are an author, is a privilege, right? And you need to serve something up, right? So he gives this to his agent, and his agent reads it, right? And I get that he has an agent who reads his stuff, right? That's not even a guarantee. I've written 2 books. I know literary world well enough to know that having an agent is very rare, and having one who reads your stuff is very rare, is even more rare, right? So he's a very fortunate, blessed man, right? But it's not enough, right? Like having 2 books published isn't enough, right? So he needs more, right? So he writes this, and immediately his agent is like, listen, I'm not going to sell this. I'm not even going to send this out. And he's like, you send it out. And he's like, no. He's like, you are trying to thumb your nose at the literary community, right? And he's like, yes, I want to shove it down their throats. I want them to understand that they should have, bought my other book. And I want to stick it in their nose. And he's like, hey man, I'm not about that. I sell books, right? I'm your agent. I sell books. I'm not interested in your quixotic quest, right? And so he's like, hey, just send it out, right? So he does. But he also sends it out not under his own name, right? But he sends it out, but he sends this book out as for Thelonious because Thelonious insisted on it, right? Now, here's the thing. The book sells like crazy, and it's accepted by the world, right? But Thelonious feels it's a failure, and he also feels it's bad, right? And it's not his best work, and there's massive failures within it. Boy, oh boy, you want to talk about being a dungeon master? I got him, right? I've had 3 gaming groups within the last 5 years break apart, right? 3 gaming groups within the last 5 years, right? It's always the same. I spin up my game. I run 3 to 6 months of content that is so compelling, it inspires every player at the table to start dungeon mastering. Every single one of them asks me to play, right? And then the same thing happens every time. You got Gordon Ramsay eating at Burger King, and Gordon Ramsay gets upset. Really, like it's the same. Like I've been dungeon mastering since 1982. These people sit at my table, they play, and then they run as dungeon masters, and then I start running as a dungeon master in the player's seat, and it ends in tears and flames every single time, right? And these are failures. This makes me upset. It's a cartoon of what I want to produce, right? Now, I would say that I had a real problem if I don't constantly have a conga line of new people to get in that are interested in playing, right? Like, in the day I can't get a butt at the table, I'll be worried, but that ain't today, right? Like, and so, and so it is really fascinating that he wrote this piece, and it's not perfect. In fact, it's tears and flames. It's a dumpster fire, right? But it's part of his work. And my pathology was written by Thelonious Ellison, right? It's his work, right? And it's on him because he served it up to the public, right? And the point is, as dungeon masters, everything is part of our work, right? I ran a game for 2.5 years. There are 8 people who have great memories from that session, and there are 5 people who have trauma, right? We tore into each other before it was done, right? Everybody there has scars, virtual, right? And everyone there has great laughter and great memories. We have both, right? It was great and it was a dumpster fire, right? But it was our work, right? And it wasn't perfect, but it was us. We forged it, right? And it had jagged shards that virtually cut all of us, but it was ours, right? And sometimes we were a cartoon of ourselves, but it was always our work. And that was my takeaway from American fiction. You write what you write, right? And maybe you tell yourself a line on why you wrote it, but your work is your work. Your thumbprint is all over it. And sometimes we create things that are beautiful and scary, that are shiny and jagged, right? That put a smile on our face and a grimace later. American Fiction is a beautiful film. And if you're a good dungeon master, it's going to remind you of your beautiful, terrifying work. Every single word you just heard is nothing more and nothing less than my humble opinion. The important part here is when I need to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.